Hey everyone, this is Beth and Stephanie,
Hello.
and oh goodness,
There we are, bigger and better.
we are bigger and better. So, hey everyone, this is Beth and Stephanie. If we weren't live a second ago,
We're live now.
We are live now. So we wanted to go live in YouTube, but
We're still working out the kinks here, guys. So here we are, good old-fashioned Facebook Live, and we decided to do a whole series of lives, right?
Yes.
Kind of to highlight the different thoughts and ideas behind why we created the American Witch Tour.
Yes.
Right? So like there's a million and one reasons why we created the American Witch Tour, but one that is very near and dear to Beth, and also that definitely coincides with what I bring to the table, and my view of it is dissolving the hierarchy of human.
dissolving the hierarchy of human.
So what is that, Beth?
So, so a hierarchy of human, to me, means that there is an elite energy to one person over another person. And that's in its most basic sort of ideology for me. And we can extend that to even include all things in the universe.
Yeah.
Animals, plants, everything. That there is this hierarchy of existing. So I wanted to sort of keep this to dissolving hierarchy of human for me, so I don't get so expansive and flaky and flighty out there. But for me, a big chunk of my work is about dissolving the hierarchy of human for me and with my community, being sort of a way shower in that regard. And that just means doing my own work to dissolve the hierarchy of human and being in communities and containers where that is what we're continuing to do. That's sort of where I'm heart space led to work. So that means, there are no superiors. There is every single person that comes into a space, to me, brings with them exactly what they're supposed to bring with them. They bring with them the knowledge of everything they've ever done. So for example, no matter what I've done with my 43 years of living, no matter where I've gone, no matter what I've done, no matter how much work I've done, if, there's nothing that I've done better or worse than anybody else. And there's nothing anybody else in the room has done better or worse than me. So it's really just dissolving that ideology that there is dissension, that there's distinction, that there is, I guess, any type of hierarchy, any type of structure that would say one is better than the other. And, the obvious conversation now, because I think dissolving a hierarchy of human is a huge part of what our world is going through, how the world is ascending and how we're rising up. And that's, obviously there's, different genders. I mean, for Stephanie and us, it's very near and dear to our heart to embody and empower the woman. Mm-hmm. It's embodying and empowering the feminine within any gender, any way that they identify. How do we embody and empower the feminine? How do we connect to source? Considering source, the possibility that source encompasses and embodies all genders. So the gender...
And appropriately empowering the male.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. This is, all things sort of bringing, to use my spiral terminology, bringing that into our heart space and a space of neutrality. To me, that's dissolving it. So, not thinking that God the Father is better than God the Mother, or that they're even different.
God's probably androgynous. I'll throw that in there, but go ahead, yes.
So, and it's, it comes down to what's better. Is it, there's so many different ways, and obviously there's racism, there's classism, there's sexism, there's all these different ways, ageism, mm-hmm. that there's a societal possibility that one person may be better than another, and to me it's a lie. And I didn't want to use the word lie earlier, but we use the word lie when we talk about it. So for me, that's what a hierarchy of human is. It's, it's easy to say that out loud, but how do we really sit with ourselves? And how do we really consciously embody how to dissolve those things within us.
Well, because I think you have to dissolve it within yourself first, and then you can also apply it externally, which is where I think a lot of like we had mentioned earlier, this is where the American Witch Tour comes in.
Yes.
How do you dissolve that in yourself? And I know you had mentioned to me, like, what do you want to talk about with this topic? It was kind of like in my craft practice, in order to be like a practitioner, you have to dissolve any ideas and constructs that you have that you're not smart enough, that you're not worthy, that you can't compare to people that are writing these books on the topic, or that you need a PhD from an institution to teach on the elements or things like that. And that's a lot of conditioning that you have to really rid yourself of in order to show up authentically.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that's a big part. Because you feel that you're not good enough on this hierarchy of human, and that prevents you from really showing up fully.
It's not just a big part. I feel like it's the part.
It's the whole part.
The whole thing.
Yeah, and that's a really big thing and so we created the American Witch Tour to kind of offer this safe space where you could just put your toe in the water, right? Where like, let me see how this feels to to dissolve that hierarchy, right?
Yes.
In myself. And I know that, so when I hear you talk about it, for me, a big part, in order to not judge that hierarchy outside of you, you have to not judge it inside of you first. Because anything that you place externally is a reflection of yourself internally. So if I don't feel good enough, I'm going to view others as not good enough. If I don't feel smart enough, I'm going to view others as not smart enough. And I'm going to assign, oh, well, that's a teacher, that's a leader, and this one's not. And you're completely correct. We all bring something to the table. My education is no different than anybody else's. Well, it is different, but
of course
comparable. It's different,
And
but it's
we all-
comparable.
Yeah.
One's not better than the other.
No. Even if no matter where you live in the world, speaking of education, no matter where you live in the world, the education that you learn every day is like ascension school, mystery school, whatever. Every moment, every waking moment, there's choices. There's things we're receiving, there's things we're not receiving. And even when we're not receiving,
Yes.
why aren't you not receiving them? Looking back on the moments in our lives that we think was maybe wasted time. While somebody else was, and I'll just take yoga, like maybe while somebody else was getting a yoga degree, I was still toiling in, corporate management. You know what I mean? And maybe at some point in my life, I thought, gosh, I wish I had done this sooner. But, and it's so long ago at this point, because now I'm not even teaching yoga anymore, even though yoga is an incredible part of my journey of coming into this space of neutrality. But, all the pieces of me cultivate that necessary, what I'm supposed to be doing,
I think
even
you
my
just said
mistakes and everything.
Neutrality.
Well, there are no mistakes, but things you
No,
might
but
perceive as
I think
mistakes.
like assigning something good or bad.
Yes.
Assigning something good or bad. Like, and we talk about this a lot, like, wasting time. Like, I wasted time. And, but you're right, like where you're born, who your parents are, your family, your experiences, how you went through school, what happened to you, like all of that stuff does shape who we are.
Yes.
And to pretend that it doesn't, or to assign good or bad to it, you're missing like that purpose of learning the lesson and growing. And like you said, like ascension school, right? That's a Bethism that I will definitely use. But I love that. Because there is a reason why we do all that. There's, I look back and I get mad at myself for wasting time, but it definitely created who I was. And that was a huge part of my practice with my witchcraft and how I use my courses with other women and men, basically empowering themselves. And this is, I'm switching to like another topic because we were talking about this earlier, this idea of the divine outside and the divine within. And like, I do a lot of deity work in my practice. So I like list myself as a traditional witch, but there's definitely a lot of deity work that I have in there. And I think that I even had to change my relationship with a deity, whereas we're more on the same playing field.
Yeah.
And like to learn from, well, I wouldn't say that, but going along, right? There's like so much conditioning there that goes, I guess how I approach and work with deities has changed so much over the years. I found the divinity within myself, right? And the different faces of that divinity. And that's been empowering on my path, right? Not being this low man on the totem pole, right?
I think that's the work. There's an imbalance when we're not completely at peace with who we are, and how we reflect in the world. So coming to that space of neutrality with yourself and being able to see yourself as an equal to the greatest people and the worst people, if you're assigning greatest and worst, because again, this is all dissolving those extremes, those polarities, and coming into this space of neutrality, that there is no real hierarchy. And that's a much bigger concept than we want to get into.
Well, I think, like, for me, it would be the lack of judging yourself and judging other people. Like, we judge things to, like, discern whether or not it's appropriate for us, or whether or not it, like, resonates with us, or, you know what I mean? Like, judgment keeps you safe, right? We wouldn't want to dissolve judgment completely. But I think that comparative judgment of better or worse, right? And I, like you said, I do think that for me, a huge part of that is internally with myself.
Yes.
That I'm not good or bad, right?
Yes.
That things that I do, it's all like kind of like that idea, I guess, that all things are for a reason.
All things are for a reason, and I think that leads into what we're actually doing with the American Witch Tour.
And I wouldn't be confused with toxic positivity. No, right? Because I have a hang up with like toxic positivity, right? When bad things happen, like constantly, like sometimes like shitty things happen.
Things are not all love and light, as
Things,
my son will say.
No, they're not, right? So I kind of had to throw that in there.
No, and that is important. You know, not assigning good and bad, just allowing
just
what's
experiencing,
within you
experiencing it,
to be what it is, and knowing. And again, it comes back to that idea you were touching on, is that, you know, there's a divinity within us.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes a hard concept to receive. So, you know, whether you have this Jivat man inside, or your higher self, or you're made in the image of God, no matter how, you know, or you have spirit, or you don't believe in anything and it's just you and you're the only universe, you're the all that matters in your matrix, and you know, whatever, you know, there is this piece within you that is divine. And that's sometimes hard to receive. I've actually had religious leaders before tell me that I am absolutely not divine, and I absolutely
divinity
disagree.
is outside of you.
Divinity is outside of me, and I absolutely disagree with that.
That's what I was like talking about with like my relationship with deity, my deity work, that now I approach it so differently because you do have a piece of them inside of you. Yes.
Yes. And, you know, really allowing yourself, you know, as we expand into hierarchy of human, as we expand into dissolving the hierarchy of human, you know, what makes me better than one person or worse than one person? So like we sit with these smaller pieces, like, oh, I'm better than them because I have a master's degree in this, or I'm not as good as them because they've been doing it for 20 years. And really sitting with that and realizing how that's bullshit. That doesn't actually, you know what I mean? Like starting there in that space and then expanding out, or perhaps knowing that you're divine, and then allowing that guidance to sort of carry you through that expansion. So if I am divine, and my purpose and my place here in my lives and all of my work is divine, and it's all guided by my higher self, even things that I might perceive as mistakes, or times where I think I might have spent too much time in grief, or I spent too much time on self-care, I spent too much time away from my kids, blah, blah, blah. Whatever we assign based on these external noises that come in, if you are divine and you are on a divine journey, it's a lot easier to move through that possibility, you know, the illusion that your life is not perfectly divine and not perfectly in alignment with everybody else's. And like you said, as you build into that with yourself, you're able to allow that for other people. And allow is like it's not the right word, but is, you know, once I start to love myself and see my own journey as divine, then it's really easier for me to see other people's journeys as divine. And it's like this upward spiral of like coming out and ascending out into this expansion of dissolving a hierarchy.
Well, you brought this up before at our last retreat, which was that mirror, right?
Yes.
What did you call that?
Mirror theory.
Mirror theory. And that came up in the last retreat, and this always makes me like take a step back. And I, you know, how I view the world outside is how you view yourself inside. What you're judging outside is what you are judgmental of. If you are an extremely judgmental person, you're judgmental of yourself. If you view the world as angry and hateful, you probably are angry and hateful inside.
You can only see in the world what you already possess within yourself.
So it's a great way, this whole theory is like a great way to check yourself, and that's like a lot what we, like I said, we brought it up at the last American Witch Tour. you like know thyself. That's like a big thing that I work with. Know thyself. Like you have to know where you're coming from and like, so you had mentioned it earlier, what conditioning do you have that's controlling you subconsciously, that's preventing you from showing up as the person that you truly want to be? And is that version in your head of what you truly want to be, is that what you want? Or is that what you think you're supposed to be going
what
for?
you were told you
is
should
that what you
want.
were told you should be going for? And I think like for me, like my craft, and I had posted it earlier, this you know, this the alchemical principle with, you know, this dissolving something and then coagulating it, like breaking it down and then recreating it. It's like there has to come a point, at least for me, with this theory where I had to sit with myself and kind of break down all the things that were I was lying to myself about, and that were conditions. Lie is the word. It's a specific thing that I believed and was taught to believe subconsciously by the world around me that prevented me from stepping into my own inherent power. Which made me play small and made me be resentful and made me, like I said, looking back, I wasted time because I was playing like this version of myself when I could have just been my true authentic self, and your true authentic self is divine.
So, and then we're going to touch on wasting time.
Yes.
So,
wasn't wasting time.
I feel like
I wasn't. No.
no, and it does. Like we look back, but what a lesson! What a permanent lesson.
Yes.
So like past life stuff. Let's just, so like I love past life regressions. I love tapping into my past life. I love doing the traveling work, and you know, these are all things that we talk about in our circles and in our American Witch Tour retreats. But you know, one of my past lives was an entire life as a scientist. Old scientist, like not like current day scientist, but an entire life as this man. And I remember this coming up in my meet reading with Colleen St. Michaels, who pulled me through my first past life regression. And I remember thinking, my God, why am I seeing this man? Like all he's doing is pouring chemicals and doing these things. Like he never spoke to anybody. And I could feel that he worked long hours and he never went home and he didn't have a family and there was nothing. And I spent an entire lifetime as this man. And what was the lesson? The lesson is and I didn't receive it immediately in that session, but as I sat with my different sessions and journaled on them, I really realized that he was showing me how not to waste time in this life.
Yeah.
So I spent an entire life wasting my life to to ascend this divinity within me, to know what it means to not waste time, to go after the things that give me joy, that give me pleasure, the things in life that give me love.
And I know for myself, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
I know that for myself, I was very, I would say lost for a long time. So I guess I wasn't wasting time. I was finding myself, right? And I would say, you know, I started a solitary witchcraft practice, well, when I was a kid. And then, like, you know what I mean? It evolves over time. And I really started focusing again, whatever. But it wasn't until I challenged myself in community, in circle with other women who I was, you know, being a solitary witch was all fun and games. It was easy to be authentic with just myself and God outside, right? Well, at least for me it was. But it wasn't until I went to ritual and I was with other men and women who, what a freeing experience to have other people, other people of this realm to see me as who I truly am. And then to see me and then to accept me. That had never happened to me before. I had never been in like a safe space where I took advantage of that. I took a hold of that opportunity of that safe space to show up and practice being authentic Stephanie, where I showed up and practice being in my power. I became a priestess. I ran circle. I channeled the God and goddess. Like there was all these like amazing things where I wouldn't have had that experience and self-growth if I just stayed solitary. So solitary is like a huge part of my practice, but it made me think of that, like being by yourself. There's such an importance with community, which brings us back to like why we're doing the American Witch Tour, why we do the public rituals. Like we have our coven, which is obviously private, but we decided public circle was such a big
it's a very
deal
different
for me.
Experience, and it is expanding, and that's when we come back to why are we talking about the hierarchy of human
Yes.
and dissolving a hierarchy of human, because when we come into circle even, and again, Stephanie and I are not recruiting witches.
No, we're not.
Stephanie and I identify as witches, and there's a lot of our life where we didn't show up. Well, I'm going to speak for myself, not for Stephanie. There's a lot of my life where I didn't show up fully in my gifts. There's a lot of life that I could consider wasted, where I didn't accept who I was, and I didn't accept the things I saw and the things that, I allowed things to scare me, and I shied away from things.
We don't play small.
And I don't, no, not anymore.
No, not anymore.
But I feel like, there's a whole, and a lot of that allows me to really lean in deeply to, what it means to be a witch. So we're not recruiting witches. What we're doing as witches is we're being a part of, we're showing up in community the way witches used to show up in community.
Yes, the village witch.
We're showing up in community in a way that offers support and love with no judgment. And that's what the witch is. The village witch does that. She lives on the outside, the fringes of society, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because this is Stephanie's definition.
She rejects the conditioning the society places on its members.
And so she will heal you without judgment. And that's a very expansive concept for people to tolerate. And it's a very, it's a concept that has been insulted and slandered and diminished and condescended on for a very long time. So we're sort of embodying that part within us that felt that shun. I don't even know where this is coming from because this is not what we planned at all. But
Always.
I feel like we are stepping up to this plate. We're not recruiting witches. If you are a witch and you feel the call,
come on down.
We're fine with that. We love that.
But if you're just someone who is looking for
support and help, because the real work that we're doing is empowerment. The real work that we're doing is allowing people to stand within their selves, this space here, and really, without judgment, step into who you really are.
And doing that by yourself is great. But when you step into a circle of other people who love and support you and allow you the space to do that publicly, that's life-changing.
It is life-changing.
It's life-changing to be a part of a community that wants you to be your authentic self and accepts you and doesn't judge you and also provides a mirror to reflect back on you.
That's the most, I think, when I think of stepping into circle, who do I look up to as a guru? Knock that shit off. Who do I look down on because I am more than knock that shit off? Like, how can I come into circle in a good way and really embody my divinity, my sacredness, and be in a space where everyone is considered sacred and divine? And that's the goal of coming into circle. That's the goal of being in front of people. And, figuring out what resonates with you and what doesn't resonate with you, because somebody can be divine and amazing and gorgeous and wonderful and all those things. But if they don't, they don't resonate with you.
Certain judgment is good.
And it's awareness.
Yeah,
it's awareness. Like it's an awareness that this person's, there's nothing here. There's nothing here that's attracting me or not attracting me, triggering me or not triggering me with this person. And maybe we're just meant to pass each other by. But, if I'm being triggered by something, that's work I need to work on. If I think I'm better than somebody or I'm irritated with somebody, they may not need to be in my life. I can thank them for the moment of trigger, and then I can go back and do whatever clearing work I need to do. I can write it on a bay leaf and I can burn it, but I can sit with myself, I can journal, and I can move through that. And that's, the easy part of dissolving a hierarchy of human is that empowerment. Like, that's that love, that, this higher side of dissolving a hierarchy of human. You are as good as everybody else. You are divine. You are beautiful. Actually, that's not that easy.
I was going to let you finish, but that is not easy.
But the bottom half is, there's I guess they're not easy. There's the receiving all these beautiful compliments.
And that's why we like to do this work with other people. You need help when you do this.
Yes.
You need help.
And then there's the other side where we realize we're not better than anyone. So I'm as
you allow
I'm not
other
as
people.
Good as, and I'm not better than everyone. So there's this whole really coming into neutrality, and we do the inner work first in order to cultivate the external work. And that's
why we're doing public circles. That's one of the reasons why we do the American Witch Tour. A safe space for authenticity and community and judgment-free healing.
Yes. And so if you have questions about what it means to be in circle, or what circle looks like, or how that can work for you over Zoom, or how that can work for you in person, you can reach out to us. We do have our next circle is May 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. It's daylight time. Eastern Daylight Time, and that is in person in Mullica Hill. But we also have a retreat coming up.
And that's a full moon. Did you say that?
I think I
it's
lied.
a full moon.
It's a possibility I lied. It is a full moon. So it's a releasing ceremony, and you don't have to, this is not
witchcraft.
It's not like this is,
it is
a little bit.
Uh-huh.
It's definitely embodying this space of healing. It's embodying a space of empowerment. We're sitting with divine white light. We really call in what resonates with the community that shows up for Circle. We feel very deeply into that. We have an idea of how Circle's going to go. We have things planned, how we're going to work with the elements.
Because this is a group thing. It's not just us.
Right.
We
So
have our own
public circle
circles.
is very different than private circles, and I don't think clothing is optional in the public one.
You have to
you
wear
probably
clothes.
have to be dressed.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
But the
we're open to divine guidance.
We are open to divine guidance. So the retreats, though, and we offer a lot of retreats. No clothing. The retreats are an opportunity, and we have cultivated this series of retreats that are coming up, and we're purposefully releasing only one at a time. We started in Salem because that felt very much like a ground zero.
Talk about healing.
For like a Northeast witch, which Stephanie and I are really embodying our Northeast witch. We are very different than a lot of, I don't even want to get into it, but there's something there, and maybe
there's
we'll
something to be
that.
learned. There's something to be learned all over the place.
But then
that's why we have the American Witch Tour.
That's why we have American Witch Tours, because this gives you an opportunity to really connect with not only our community, but call in the greater community, expanding community. So
educate yourself,
educating yourself, stepping into other viewpoints, giving voices to people that we sometimes put on a pedestal and sometimes think we're better than. This is still dissolving the hierarchy of human. So for me, like when we go to Asheville, we're meeting with a group of Cherokee natives.
Yes, we're going to the reservation.
So that's super important for me because I do hold them on this gorgeous pedestal, if I may, and I'm not even going to get into that too much because I don't want to say anything that would offend anybody, but there's a space in my heart where I feel this magnificence, this importance of the indigenous, this value, this wisdom, and again, I'm separating myself from them. And what I want to do at whatever level is good for you, comfortable for you, whatever feels right is the next step forward. Meeting with a Cherokee community allows me to really see through the veil and see them as perfectly divine humans.
Well, you meet with the community themselves instead of reading about it in a book, right?
Yes.
And I think that's what the American Witch Tour is about. Beth and I are insane researchers, readers. You are getting your master's in world religion. We are over the top educating ourselves. And I think that there is something to be said about getting out of the books, getting out of your head, and going and meeting with these people on their land.
Yeah. So
going to Asheville.
So I'm telling you my personal journey, but that is the real thing
for
everybody. What does it mean to be face to face, and
meet with the Appalachian people.
Meet with real people. Real people, connect with real people so that you have camaraderie and you build this love. And it is incredibly healing and incredibly empowering. So I was definitely going through the motions of that. But I think that it's an incredible opportunity to connect with people that we wouldn't normally connect with.
Yes. Regionally,
racially, gender, whatever, however, gender's a big part of this. How, the witch community is very, I love that about them. I'm not going to get into it. There's too much. There's too much. We've already.
It's too much. But if you're interested at all in not judging yourself, finding your own inherent power and finding your own self-worth, that is mine and Beth's jam.
It is. And celebrating the power of everyone around you.
Yes.
Your independence, your divinity, and our oneness.
Yes.
And
get
so
the hell
much stronger together.
Off of Facebook, get off of Instagram, get out of your books, and go meet people. You hear that, Facebook? They're not even going to share our video now. They hate us.
So if you saw it, good for you. No one else will.
But let's get out in real life and circle together. Let's be in community and lift each other up, provide safe spaces for each other, and grow together and heal together and learn from each other. I learn from people in group too, all the time.
All the time.
Constantly. It's not just me sharing my wisdom.
No.
I learn from people all the time. You always say to me, I tap out and circle all the time. Just tap out because I just completely get crazy shit happens to me, but I just I get overwhelmed. I'm dealing with the group and the energy, and we're all here to learn and lift each other up.
Yeah.
And that also goes along with the American Witch Tour.
Absolutely. So the
Yes.
American Witch Tour, we are going to Asheville in October of
Blue Mountains,
2022. So there's a lot of different magic in that region, and there's a lot of amazing cultures to meet and connect with. And thank you. And we also have circles coming up.
Yes,
so we have
in May.
circles, and we'll drop all
June.
of these links here. So much love.
Bye, guys.
Bye.